Welcome to this regular meeting of the Biloxi City Council on August the 6th. We will open this meeting with prayer by Pastor Eric E. Dickey of First Missionary Baptist Church. Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Felix, will you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll go on to agenda order, being that there is a change to the agenda. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Felix.
Second.
Second by Mr. Glavin. Go ahead and read the changes. Oh, all in favor? 7-0.
To our policy agenda, we're substituting item 4B, which is a resolution pertaining to the Sanger Theater repairs. We're substituting item 4D, resolution to grant preliminary final subdivision plat approval for property identified as 725 Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. And we're removing item 5F from our consent agenda concerning a budget amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Lucy. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Glavin. Second. All in favor? Unanimous votes. This brings us on to the presentation agenda. Mayor's report.
Thank you, Madam President. I was out yesterday for the workshop, but I watched it on BTV, and it was a little seemed like an episode of Spending Gone Wild. So I would take a few moments to address that, and then, of course, ask your support on the Sanger Theater restoration, $1.5 million of which was going to come from the capital, the bond, as well as I think $981,000 that's in the 38 fund, which is there for capital projects. So that's how we would go forward with the Sanger to seal that envelope. That would be the ceiling, the air conditioning, the fly tower, and that would leave only the ceiling of the bricks. I'm urging that because I think there's a lot of opportunity to get this project done, and there was since a meeting with a number of folks from the state, and of course some of the proposals that were submitted in RFP, it does give us an opportunity. We met with the state folks regarding Katrina funds left over. That, and again, this was there, you were there with me, Peter, when we talked about the water pushing through the brick because it was not sustained or put up the right way. So there may be some opportunity to get that, probably $600,000 or $700,000 to do that if we seal this envelope. Each one of these proposals, and people who have visited said, it's a great opportunity, and we feel that this would be our match. Again, number of opportunities come from new market tax credits, historical tax credits, as well as opportunity zone and tourism rebate without a $70 million investment. So any sales tax could be used to, the 70% sales tax could be used to move this project forward. So I urge you to pass this today because I think we have a number of supporters in the audience, and I think it's the right thing to do. It's well worth the money. It's, if somebody talked about my pet project, well, it is my pet project, and I want to make this thing work. And I think Biloxi needs this, and the coast needs this, so I would urge you that. But let me go back to my spending gone wild kind of a comment. I did put a sort of a summary of what we're proposing in expenditures this year. One point I wanted to note, you can look at the 5 categories that our expenses are broken up to. 70% of what we're asking in this budget is related to wages and salaries and benefits. If you look at this column, that for 2020 is $42,762,611. Now, how did we get there? There was a lot of consternation on, what we're doing. How did we get there? But let me tell you, first of all, when I took office in May of 2015, we were able to do some things, and we passed, I think, 9/23/2015, a 3.45%, no less than $1,000. This raise was effective 10/1/2015. That cost $2.9 million. The next year, in 16, we passed an additional 1.2% raise. That costs an additional $1,260,000, almost $261,000. So that's wrapped up. That $4 million is wrapped up in that 42. That everyone was. I guess the feeling is, what could we do? 70% of this budget is wrapped up in those personal services. Now you'll note in this column it talks about the change from 19 to 20. That $648,000, we actually reduced some bodies and kept vacancies from happening. And it was mentioned last night, $800 and something thousand in peers, right? Well, the net effect is $648,000. So that's reflective in this budget. So it's not gloom and doom. And I would ask and would offer to meet 1, 2, 3 at a time between now and our next workshop, so we can go in detail on how we were going to roll this budget out. Let me show you. These are the combined statements that you've passed since I've been in office, and each one of them wind up with $4 or $5 million in cash after we're guesstimating. But each time, we got to have more cash. So let me read from these audited statements. 9/30/2016, we had $9,310,393 in cash or cash equivalents in the general fund. The following year, we had $9,564,914 cash or cash equivalent. This past year, 2018, we wound up with $11,892,023. Now, in business, that's called year-to-date gain or loss when you go from one year to the other. So all is not, what was turned out on BTV last night. So there is a logical and a reasonable plan on how we'll move forward and what we'll need in order to address the contingencies. And, I would offer between now and Monday, when we have our next workshop, to go in detail through that. Okay? Any questions? All right, y'all are easy.
George?
Thank you.
George does.
Yeah. 2015, we passed a raise. That was a step raise. It wasn't
It's
a
3, 4, 5%.
right?
And it costs us $2.9 million.
But that's been there.
Yeah, and it's in
Okay,
this one
that's
too.
how it's been
It's
there
not just a
2015,
it wasn't 1 year, George. It wasn't 1 year. It's every year.
2015, it's been there all these years.
No, it hasn't been all these years. It was 37 million to 42 million.
I'm just
Okay?
saying.
That's what it is. You
Raise
passed
went
every
in
one of those
effect.
budgets.
The
You
raise
passed
went-
every one of those
the raise
raises.
went in effect. It's still in effect.
Yeah, it's still in effect.
So
You
that has
can't
nothing to
cut
do-
that down because
why
you
we
raised
$4
it.
million out on this budget. It had nothing to do with that, the raise. The raise has been sitting there.
Well, you come meet with it and I'll show you exactly.
Yeah, well, I'm just telling you.
Yeah. Well, again, most of it is in wages and salaries. That goes on and on and on.
Was the expenses. That was our
That's
biggest
the
concern.
70% of the expenses in wages
I'm
and
talking
salaries.
about all the different departments, the non-department report, all that was what we were looking at yesterday.
Look at that picture right there to tell you what each change happened for each department in this city.
We looked at that yesterday.
No, you didn't look at this. I just gave it to you today.
Yesterday.
You didn't look at it yesterday. You looked at it today. It's the first time I gave it to you.
Okay, guys. Okay.
All right, thank you,
Anyone
Madam
else have any
President.
questions? Okay. Is that the end of your report?
That does, thank you.
That was a doozy. Okay, we'll move on to any departmental reports. We'll move on to council reports. I guess we'll start with George.
Let me ask you a question for a moment. You'll be all right. Don't get so excited. Your blood pressure gets up when you get excited. You get all excited.
By the way, what happened to your hand? Did you punch George earlier?
Yeah.
Oh. We'll go with that. George, do you have a report?
Yeah, we did. Carl Leggett tournament was held down at the pavilion. They had 500 fishermen. They had a big crowd down there. The Saturday and Sunday. I didn't make Friday. And it was just a good tournament for the city of Biloxi. A lot of people in there, and they enjoyed it. Had a great kids fishing rodeo. Turned out great, you know. It's always supported by the city. So that's one of the things that we do well. That didn't cost us too much money. Thank you.
Mr. Gaines?
All right, yes, on last weekend, Saturday, we had a great backpack giveaway. I want to give thanks to the mayor, Sherry Bell, for all their supports. We gave away over 100 backpacks. Our goal was to give away 100 backpacks. We ended up giving away 150 backpacks. The water slides, the kids play for hours. We had to run them out the park. So I want to thank everyone who donated and supported the cause there. And also, not only, I know Pastor Dickey mentioned the people around the United States and in Texas and in Oklahoma, but also remember keeping your prayers the 3 little young men who came over to the Salvation Army repeatedly. They were members of the Salvation Army Kroc Center, and that got drowned last week. So keep them and their families in our prayers. Thank you.
Amen. Mr. Deming? No report. Mr. Tisdale?
Yeah, I saw Mr. Leonard in the back a moment ago. Does he step out? Here's my comment, really. I know that we are purchasing properties on Oakmont for the Pops Ferry extension. And some of those homes now belong to the city, and we've got the grass, and I'm getting a couple of calls as I shared with you, and I'm thinking, since we have a contractor that is currently mowing periodically, I think it's monthly, 70 properties. I'm wondering if we just couldn't add those 2 or 3 properties there just for the next month or 2, and then I think that would be it. Okay. Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That concludes my report.
Mr. Glavin?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Mike Leonard and Chief Miller, the mayor's office. We had an issue dealing with school traffic on Tribe Drive and Wells, and I think y'all came up with a solution with a temporary three-way stop a portable three-way stop that possibly we could put there to alleviate some of that congestion and speeding and controlling some of the traffic in that area. In particularly, Barbara Lacoste and her husband, Jeffrey Lacoste, thank you for coming up with a solution. So I wanted to shout out with that. Also, Reverend Dickey, I don't know if he's left the room, but I just want a very moving invocation and appropriate, and I want to thank him for that. And then finally, our colleagues here today, our president and Mr. Gaines, good luck, on your pursuit tonight.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Mr. Barrett?
No report.
Okay, and I have no report. We'll move on to the public agenda where we have citizen comments. We have a 45-minute time allotted, 3 minutes each citizen. And as you walk up to the podium, please state your name and your address as well as write it down. Anyone on my left, your right, that would like to come speak? You can come on, sir. You want to speak? He stood up first, babe. You can go next. Okay, if you want to come. He's being a gentleman. Always my fault.
Yeah, that's true. So I said, what did you do?
That's for the bank, Coast Community Bank.
My name is Tracy Manaman. I live at 1161 Lafayette Street in Biloxi. Does this one work?
You sit down.
Since I've only got 3 minutes, I'm going to have to read this, okay? So, here we go. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today regarding an easement awarded to the state by what I believe was an ill-advised, poorly communicated resolution 177-19 for a parking easement presented by the mayor. The resolution was approved 7-0 without discussion on March 19, 2019. Specifically, item 5I on the consent agenda, where the approval allowed the state to create 37 parking spaces directly onto and into Lafayette Street, a historically residential street in Ward 1B. This lot will be accessible to the traffic from Lafayette Street only, with no ingress or egress included. Since the inception of the state buildings, Bolton Building, back in the 80s, Lafayette Street and its surrounding neighbors and neighborhood have always enjoyed a strict separation between state business and residential living by means of a very decorative and effective concrete, columned, and iron railed fence. That fence has now been destroyed, and in place will be soon 37 ugly parking spaces. The project presents unnecessary and additional traffic onto a historically quiet and peaceful residential street, allows state business to encroach into an area that is zoned RS 7.5, single-family residential. It failed to fully consider other alternative parking options that exist elsewhere on the property. It was ill-advised to the council because the words Lafayette Street are not mentioned anywhere in the proposed resolution. It was never posted for public consideration, and it was or any subsequent discussion. The neighborhood residents were never afforded the opportunity or the right to have any input whatsoever on this resolution. There is no evidence that the project was ever reviewed by the city's planning section of the Community Development Department. One more, I respectfully request that approval for the subject item be reversed and overturned, that the project be immediately halted, issuing a stop work order, and that the public be given the opportunity to voice their perspective, opinions, and other viable options that will remove the commercial parking lot from the otherwise peaceful and residential Lafayette Street. I will additionally hope that the consideration will not be, nothing can be done because it is a state project. This is the answer I've been getting for the last 3 weeks, as that could surely not be in the residents' best interest. Your citizens respectfully request that you, the City Council, and our nominated officials honor our certain rights by listening to our concerns on this resolution and honor our rights as your citizens to live in a healthy, safe, and in the best welfare of our homes, as laid out in the land development portion of our Code of Ordinance.
I'm sorry, ma'am, your time is up.
Well, thank you, and I'll see y'all at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Stanton Fountain, Jr. I'm an attorney here in Biloxi. My office is at 711 Martin Luther King Boulevard, Biloxi, Mississippi. I represent Jennifer Obar, who is the owner of the professional building. And it occupies the remaining parcel in the property that used to be, the block that used to be occupied by the old federal courthouse. You have the property here before you today on a subdivision case. What I have to do has very little to do with the subdivision issues before you, but I want you to know the background of the property that you're dealing with. And I want to clarify some things that were said in the Planning Commission hearing. From the construction and occupancy of the professional building in 77 and 1978, the professional building owners and tenants utilized the property to the south for parking. And this area is sometimes referred to in different pleadings as the southeast portion of the block. The professional building was constructed with no parking. It was also constructed oriented to the south. The city did not require, the reasons were the city did not require parking in this zoning district when the professional building was built or now. My old boss, Bobby Obar, tried to purchase additional property when he bought the land that the building's on. He wanted to put his own parking in there, and the city refused, telling Bobby he didn't need parking because the city was going to furnish it. They told Bobby that the area to the south of him was going to be a public parking lot for the use of his building and the public. The problem began when the city donated the rest of that block to a private developer who then tried to eliminate the public parking in the area. That resulted in a lawsuit being filed by the city in 1983 against the developer. It resulted in a final judgment being entered that contained a permanent injunction which would have secured the parking from then on. In 2011, the city went in and dissolved that permanent injunction without giving Mrs. Obar, who was then the owner of the professional building, any notice at all of what was occurring. When Mrs. Obar learned that the permanent injunction had been dissolved in 2014, she began communicating with the city, either directly through council or through other intermediaries. And she has been seeking the city's assistance in securing the parking that was promised to her late husband when he built this building. Those of you who have been involved in these communications know what representations and assurances were given Mrs. Obar.
Mr. Fountain, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Good evening. Robert Schwartz. My address is 2355 Pass Road, Biloxi, Mississippi. I represent Community Bank, and I feel just a quick response is necessary to Mr. Fountain's comments. We're here today simply on subdivision approval. The property...
Speaking to the microphone, please.
Sorry. The property that's subject to the subdivision plat approval is not owned by Ms. Obar. It's owned exclusively by Community Bank. She owns no interest in our property. She has no rights into our property. She's never filed any action to attempt to obtain any such rights. So simply, we're here today seeking a subdivision approval which will just divide the existing parcel into 3 parcels. That's going to allow for Community to commence the construction of its new headquarters in Biloxi that I know you've all seen and I think everyone in the city is excited about. So any other issues that Ms. Obar has are just that, issues that she has. They're not issues that are relevant to Community's application. And I'm sure Mr. Abide can provide any further background that may be necessary.
Hi, Becca Vanderford. I'm here to represent Biloxi Stanger Restoration, LLC. I just wanted to say, in regards to item 4B in the agenda, thank you to the administration for submitting the changes to the agenda, as well as thank you to all of the city council members that have done work to try to help with this Stanger project. We really appreciate it, and we are looking forward to getting into negotiations with the city. Thank you.
I'm Cynthia McEldown. I live on Crawford Street. My main concern today is the safety of the kids from the school, Bayview Avenue and Lemieux, the intersection. You cannot see the markings on the road, and it needs to be repainted. Last school year, my husband and I had a few close calls with people coming head-on and sideswiping us, so it really needs to be marked, the roads on Bayview Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on my left, your right?
Hello, I'm Marty Dustford. I live right across the street from this project. Is depreciating my property, it's blocking my driveway, it's going to cause a whole bunch of noise at night because the trucks are going in and out of there anyway. South of that project, north of that project, there's boats coming through every night and trucks driving up. It keeps the neighborhood pretty loud. You know, we don't need it. Nobody even considered telling us that this was going to happen. It just happened, and I ain't crazy about it. You know, being that y'all in charge, y'all should let us know. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? My left, your right?
Jennifer Oval. I'm at 711 Dr. Martin Luther King, and Mr. Swartz is very mistaken. We have tried to do everything in the world to get something done over there. We've sent him letters to try to buy. His response was, first he never responded, then his response was that I couldn't afford it. So I have tried to get this situated. There is parking out there. We have a problem, and that's about all I know. But this has been going on for years and years and years and years. My husband tried to get it corrected. I've tried just since he's been passed away. And it's like talking to the doorknob. So he's mistaken that we haven't tried to get it taken care of. Thank you.
Anyone else on my left?
My name is Wanda Smith, and I live on Lafayette Street. I have just moved there. I've been there about 6 months. But the condition of the road, the housing and the properties were so sweet and very quiet. And right now it's a complete mess. It's not pretty anymore. And the value of the homes are definitely going to go down because of this. There's no landscaping of any kind. The dust is unbelievable. And I appreciate y'all for thinking of Lafayette Street.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else on my left, your right? Anyone else on my left, your right? Anyone on my right, your left that would like to come speak? Anyone? Anyone in the back? Being none, citizen comments is now closed. We'll move on to ordinance A. Ms. Lucy?
Ordinance to approve a change in zoning for 69 parcels of land for property located on the north side of Howard Avenue, south side of Howard Avenue, inclusive of the side of Porter and south to Alley Drive.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move that.
Motion by Mr. Lawrence and second by Mr. Guines. Being a first reading, we'll move on to Resolution B. George Lawrence, and Felix.
Resolution accepting the bid of Blackline Corporation for the Sanger Theater repairs.
I'll move it for discussion.
We already have a motion, correct?
Oh, you did? Sorry.
Tisdale and Guines, okay. Tisdale, do you have any discussion?
Yeah. Excuse me, yeah, I have a few questions, and I know that we've had some revisions. I'll let somebody go first while I organize my thoughts here just for a moment.
Mr. Guines.
I guess the question I'll have is, this is authorizing a second request for proposal. Did we not have a proposal on?
They amended it.
They amended it.
Here.
They did have a request, but they adjusted it. What they're doing, they changed it in the wording in the next proposal. But that was part of what they added on to this thing today. My problem is, I told them earlier, went through this with the Sanger, with the $981,000. And my problem is, with us dealing with the budget, if we can find $981,000, then we need to put that towards the budget. And this thing with the Sanger, right now, to me, there's nothing settled on where we're going with anything. I know you put out all kind of feelers to see how much money we can get back to help the Sanger. Have we heard back from anybody on anything that we sent out, on any requests for money to build back to the Sanger? Okay, we'll get there. But I mean, that's me right here. I can't support what we're doing with this here. I think this should be tabled. I think we should have a workshop. I think we should have any information we can get from everybody. Nobody wants to kill the Sanger, so we get that off the table real quick. We just
Sure seems like you're going to kill the Sanger.
the right
Yeah,
way.
we're trying to get the construction going so we can fix the damn thing, okay? And this is the opportunity. You got enough money to pull the trigger with this and does not impact the budget. It's been sitting there. How many years has that money been sitting there? 10? 10 years? Okay, well, you want to put the money to work? You can put it to work. That's a $2 million match. We're asking for $2 million from BP money and every other place, but you can't get off the mark till you seal this envelope. And this is an opportunity to do it.
I don't, when you have this tied together, the way you have it all three things together, I mean, I just can't support that, the way it is. That's all there is to it.
Mr. Guines?
Yeah, and it's a proven fact that if you let a building sit, it will continue to go down. We have an opportunity. We've already approved the money. We have already allocated the money for it. So it's no better time than to start on it than the future. If we hold off, then it's going to cost us a little bit more. Not just a little bit more, probably a whole lot more. So I believe we need to go ahead and push forward and move forward and get this structurally sound. Because if you don't get it structurally sound, it's going to continue to collapse and continue to fall apart. So we have to get on this right away. This has already been allocated. We done talked about this. We done beat it around the bush for what? For the last 6 months or so. So after 6 months, if we can't make a decision, then we
60 days.
Yeah, it's been longer than that.
Councilman,
So it's time to move it forward.
what you asked us to do when you tabled this resolution, you asked us to go look for alternative funding sources.
Say that again?
We've done that. You asked for you asked us to go look for alternative funding sources. We've done that. For starters, we put an RFP out asking for firms that would be interested to come in and operate, manage, and maintain the new Sanger Theater. And we've got some good responses, even though short notice. And we've got people very interested in being on the back end of this. We also submitted a grant yesterday, actually went into the Mississippi Development Authority for a $2 million grant to add to our money to renovate and do this project and finish the exterior and interior. So that's working, and we have good feedback from MDA that it's going to be well received. And we also looked, if you will, shook the tree as hard as we could to see if there was any money left that we could lay our hands on, and we found unused residual bond money that was, if you look at the bond covenant, it said it, among other things, for repair of recreational facilities. So it is appropriate. You can't just dump that money into the general fund and spend it to buy tennis shoes and salaries. It has to be used for the original covenant. The original covenant included repair of recreational facilities. So now, without going into anything other than the $1.5 million that was set aside in our budget for the Sanger, we can at least award a contract and get this building back in shape where it is structurally sound. Keep in mind that building's been shut down for a year due to life safety issues. A structural engineer with a bunch of letters behind his name told us the building was not safe. And, you know, before somebody wants to come in and manage and operate that facility, they want it to be safe. And we're required to be safe. So we've done all the things that you asked us to do, and we've obtained the money it takes to award this contract and get it moving. So now back to you.
There's a significant amount of engineering that has already been done to get us to this point.
Well, didn't y'all receive 4 reports that people was interested in saying?
Responses for requests for proposals.
So what happened to those 4 people that
I think we
applied
haven't
on
evaluated
time?
all of them yet.
Say again?
We haven't evaluated them yet.
So how are we passing this here with another change in the right proposal?
We will ensure that every person that was interested in it, you know, you get the thing from, okay, I'll let you say it. But basically, they're not going to be, it's not going to be going backwards. You got to seal the roof. You got to put a new AC. You got to fix the fly tower. That's what we're doing, period. So you could put anywhere from $5 to $15 more million in it, and these proposals address that and put it in a first-class operational condition. But this is the first step.
Now, as far as the bond, the thing was originally in the bond was $1.5 million was put to the Sanger, and that's the bond.
The second is from the 38
Right.
fund. It's called Mississippi Development.
This bid was 2.1, then they added 220 to it, and it's $635,000. So the bid now is the 2.3 million. Okay, you're dealing with 1.5, now you found 981,000 from some other place. You said you can't dump it in the general fund. Well, how can you dump it in the Sanger?
Because the bond covenant came out of the general fund. It's called Mississippi Development Bank Loan Capital Project.
No, I'm just saying. But I mean, capital project can go into the general fund. There's a lot of capital projects throughout the city could be had.
Anything else, Felix?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Glavin?
So I have a couple of questions. I have no problem supporting the funding that y'all found. I got a question. Are we saying that we need to authorize the new funding, and then what is the reason for the second round of RFPs? What is the reason for that to tie in to the funding?
That was amended.
No, we added an amendment to state that we're going to begin negotiations with those people that did timely submit, talk to them. If we have something acceptable, we would bring that to the council. If we don't have something acceptable, we would go ahead with a more extended RFP, because when the first RFP went out, the Black Line contract had not been let. And so as part of a second RFP, or as part of the initial negotiations we would begin with. We could talk about, as part of your proposal, what reimbursement would you be willing to give back to the city as part of these repairs?
Okay, thank you, Counselor. So here's my position on it. And I've been trying to get some background on all this in the last, 48, 72 hours, but the Sanger is certainly a gem. We've all said that. We had a public outcry a few weeks ago, and we heard from several citizens that are passionate, and they love the Sanger, and they want to see the Sanger. I think we all love the Sanger and recognize what it is. In fact, we got some rising champions on the council that are advocating for it to rise again. And I think we need to support what you're trying. We charged you with finding additional funds. You went and did that. And so that's to be commended, and I certainly support it. On the issue of the parties that have came to the table and said they're interested in taking over and managing it or turning it into something that the public could enjoy and use, we certainly need to make sure that we're negotiating in good faith with that as we move in that direction. But this is something we've been waiting for. We've talked about, the mayor has talked about Hattiesburg, Mobile, New Orleans. Just today, I had a lady, local, by the way, walk in one of our hotels, and we started talking about the Sanger, and she said, yes, I got an event that I'm doing in Hattiesburg. I wish I could do one with you guys. And so there's a lot of people patiently waiting to help us be successful with this. So that's my take on it.
Okay, Mr. Deming?
And my question or my statements don't really concern whether we should fund the Sanger or not. I think that's been beat to death by me.
Hardly left a mark on you.
I wasn't here 10 years ago when this bond was given to us by the Development Authority or the Mississippi Development Bank, but 7 years we've shook the leaves, so you speak, and this has never fallen out. How have we overlooked this every year when we're crunching budget numbers and this just $1 million has not been there? I mean, we have accountants and managers and council members that have been here since before time started.
It's true.
And nobody knew this. It just blows my mind that this appears now magically.
Well, it was well known to us. It was a rainy day fund. Anybody, even, somebody running their checking account at home is saving some money back. It was in the 38 fund. I can point it out to you in the CAFR on page 24.
Are there any others?
How many rainy day funds we have?
That you'd like to point out to us?
It's the last one I've been able to find, but who knows? But it's been there all along. And Councilman Lawrence, who voted for it, probably remembers what it was supposed to be used for.
Do you remember?
It wasn't used for the Sanger, I'll tell you that.
It was.
I do remember. Right.
Clearly for repair of recreational facilities.
Do you have a better way to use it, though?
We talked in our budget hearings yesterday about the possibility of using it in the general fund. We can't do that. There's a covenant that says what we're supposed to use this bond money for. It's not bond money, it's a loan from the Mississippi Development Bank. That's been paid off. So there it sits.
Yeah, but you can use it for a lot of capital projects. Yes, you can. You could do roads.
We
You
could
could
use
pave
it for any
roads,
capital
right.
project that met the covenant of that original agreement.
So I'm just saying, that's the only reason I suggested tabling the thing,
The,
is to get everything straight, find exactly what we're going after.
Another point I'd like to make is that this contract, if awarded, has a performance period of 300 days. Unlikely, I would say more likely than not, more like 360 days, given the kinds of work it is. That gives us a year to work with these various firms that have made proposals. It gives us a year to to create an agreement with us and a partnership agreement with somebody. It gives us a year for that partnership to develop historical tax credits or whatever tax credits they can. Gives us
Or
a year
less,
for
or
those
less.
things for us.
Or less, right?
Or less. But it gives us a whole year to work on that. And so that when this project comes out the other end, we've got a new Sanger that's structurally sound, safe, and that some firm can take off and operate. We've even talked about the fact that there's no reason this firm couldn't manage our activities at MGM Park. There's no reason this firm couldn't manage some of our museums. There's no reason that a professional firm like this, some of these firms are people that operate other Sangers. They could rotate Broadway plays and stuff between the stories, the different theaters. All that's out there and possible. When we come out the other end of this deal, it will not be something she's not here today, Sherry Bell. I said to her at the beginning of this, when this is over, you will not own the Sanger. Parks and Recs is not qualified to run a first-rate operation like this is going to be. It's got to be a professional management company. And that's where we're heading. But this is in parallel to putting the place back and making it structurally sound. I've made a joke a little bit that we can't very well ask people to go to the theater and wear a hard hat. But that's what would have to happen if we put this place in operation. We're talking about turning the power off, turning the power on, turning the water on, turning the water off, construction, ripping the roof off. This is going to be a dramatic renovation, including replacing the entire fly tower. That's what's ready to happen.
That was a $700,000 gotcha that we didn't expect that to happen. So we had enough money to go forward with, but that $700,000, the reason why it had to be closed was that unexpected. But this contract and this bid will handle that. Let me say again, this is a perfect opportunity to move it forward, and we may wind up with $7 or $8 million from sources we didn't even dreamed about. But if we don't do this right now, it starts a whole process that's going to take another 2 years.
Our message to MDA was, we're putting $2 million skin in the game. Now you guys come up with the other $2 million.
The other problem I had was, just like you keep saying everything's supposed to be sound, everything was out there, and it was supposed to be written, and yet today y'all substituted something else in this resolution.
We substituted the new funding.
Added something else again. So what are we actually doing? That's what I'm saying. Why don't you table the thing and get it right to start with?
Councilman, the reason we had to substitute is your council rules
you
require us to substitute an agenda item in order for us to put it back on the table. So we had to rewrite it, put in the new funding, and substitute this.
And I'm just like Robin, in a sense, $981,000 just fell in the sky. That was wonderful. The people that already bid on this thing, okay, they don't get any answers. Nobody talked to them. We hadn't heard anything. Y'all said they had 4 people signed up. That's all y'all told us, their names. So
George,
we sitting back doing nothing.
the amendment that we're passing is going to be negotiating with those 4 proposals.
That's just another way of getting it on the table. The problem is you need to get this thing straight before you ever put it on the table. That's the problem. The $981,000, I need to find out what else we could do with that money. We're sitting there for $4 million we're trying to find. There's a lot of things we're trying to do. That's what they want you to do. It's just something to put on the table. Let's pass it now, and we'll look at it. And then you're in trouble. Then you're trapped.
But right now, we're talking about the building, not the budget.
Bids expire in a couple of days.
You put all
It's
3
now or
things in
never.
it.
Yeah, we're talking about the building, and if you look at Biloxi from a historical standpoint, we only have 2 jewels left. That's the lighthouse. It's the lighthouse and the Singer Theater. What are we gonna do?
$16.99. We got 2 left. 2 left. 2 left.
And George.
$16.99.
And George.
Mr. Barrett?
I'll be real brief. I don't necessarily have any issue spending the $981,000 as long as it's not coming out of that 8.3 that we have or the out of the bond. However, and the RFP dealing with these people. I've met with one of the people that have submitted an RFP, and I have no issue with us as a city working with them. However, last year when we sat down, we had the tables in the square out here. I was very clear that I would not support spending money out of the bond for the singer. Again, when we voted on it, I made that very clear. 60 days ago, whenever we had this discussion and we tabled this, I made it very clear. So on the other two things, I have no issue, but I will not support the $1.5 million being spent out of the bond. We can't borrow money. We can't take out another bond for several years without raising our millage. And just in my ward alone, there's $3.5 million worth of road work that needs to be done. And I'm sure that there's near that in a lot of the other wards as well. And so I just can't justify spending $1.5 million. It doesn't mean I'm against the singer. It doesn't mean I want it to be pushed down or anything like that. However, I can't justify spending that out of the bond, and so I won't support that portion of it if it is voted on. That's all I have.
Mr. Tisdale?
Yes. So we had how many proposals submitted? I think the deadline was July 15th. So how many proposals did we have submitted?
That's what it said in the resolution, July 15th.
Well, we had 4. There were some questions on timeliness for a couple of them, but I mean, I'm not really prepared to discuss details of those proposals in open session.
Okay, and the mayor said that the proposals hadn't been evaluated yet. I mean, we're in a hurry to move forward. Y'all have had them for 3 weeks. We're trying to move forward on construction. You can't discuss anything with us. Is there proprietary information involved, or, I mean, in the bid specs, it says unless specific materials designated confidential or a trade secret, all information contained in the responses shall become open for public review. Is there some reason this isn't open for public review?
It is right now until we make a decision on where to go forward with this. It is proprietary.
So they've not been evaluated, so the administration doesn't have a recommendation at this point on who to deal with?
No, for a permanent, I mean, there's a lot of details that need to be dealt with, and at the time we issued the RFP, we didn't know what part of the contract was going to be let. We didn't know, I mean, it's not just like out of this time period, we had 2 in, this is the best one, or this isn't the best one. Typically, we'd sit down, like with the other properties, sit down and negotiate with each party, and what's your best project. But this is a piece of the puzzle that it's hard to negotiate with somebody till we know where we are going forward with the Sanger. That's why we've changed it to say, as part of this, we will begin negotiations, bring that to you. If neither of those are acceptable, we will do a second RFP, which would be a more lengthy process. It's going to take roughly 9 to 10 months to complete this, so if we had to allow some extra time, we would need that. But
So
if we have a good project, if we have a good proposal, we would bring that to you.
So have you evaluated the proposals?
I've reviewed them.
Reviewed them?
Yes.
Has anybody else reviewed them, or just you?
We brought them into executive session a few weeks ago. The mayors looked at them. They're available for inspection among the council.
They are available for
Yes, sir.
inspection? Because I had asked a couple of days ago and was told they were not.
You should have asked me.
From here on out, I'm not asking anybody but you.
No, don't do that.
Councilman, when you asked me, I said that I thought we could provide them in a reading room where you could come to, in a secure location to read the proposals, because they are confidential only in the nature of that we can't share the information from one to the other.
It may have been a misunderstanding on my part. I apologize. I don't recall that, but that's certainly possible.
The important thing is to understand that we don't intend to squeeze somebody out by starting the clock over again.
Right, let's look at the verbiage added to Section 6. I guess this is the substitute. It says the Department of Administration is hereby, number 1, authorized to begin negotiations with those entities that responded to the RFP, of which we have 4. And if no proposals are acceptable, as determined by the administration with a recommendation to the council, the administration shall, number 2, issue a second request for proposals seeking private investment and a future management agreement for the Sanger Theater. Number 3, which proposal may include reimbursement to the City of Biloxi for the repairs expended during the Black Line contract approved by this resolution. So depending on who we get RFPs from, then it's going to be negotiated whether or not they will reimburse the city for any improvements made to the Sanger.
That would be possible with tax credits. A lot of moving parts.
Opportunities for historical tax credits, new market tax credits, as well as opportunities zones.
Well, we just don't want to rule it. I mean, if we have 2 proposals and they're both equal, but one of them is offering to refund a large portion of these repairs, that's going to be a better proposal.
Okay, my head's starting to explode as soon as we get the new market tax credits and all that stuff. And I'm thinking maybe a workshop might be desirable to explain to us how this works. All right? The next thought that comes to mind is we've got the contractor who's been holding his price, and that expires, I think, Mr. Leonard, you said in a couple of days. So if we're going to have the work done, we need to go ahead and move forward. We've got the funding. And I noticed people said, where'd the $900,000 come from? Well, it sounds like if we'd have found it sooner, it wouldn't be there. So.
That's correct.
Okay, so that being the case, what if we moved forward, omitting Section 6 until after the workshop?
I mean, that would be up to y'all's option. There wouldn't need to really be any Section 6. I think Section 6 is just to give y'all the understanding of how we want to still meet with these people. But if you don't have Section 6, we still are going to negotiate with those people we have, and if we don't, I mean, all that is still going to happen anyway.
Sure. No, I understand that. I think the important thing is maybe as we move forward, while the contractor's holding his price, and just toward that end, I'd make a motion that we strike Section 6, if there's a second.
I'll second it, if that's a motion.
Alan,
that's a motion.
Can we discuss it?
Yeah.
I mean, I still like, if you're going to do that, I'd like to put 981 with that to find out exactly what else we could do with that money. The $981,000. I'd like that to put that with that also, to see what other options we have. Like Nathan said, maybe in his ward, maybe in somebody else's ward. I'd just like to see what else we could do with the 981. Because it wasn't, like you said, I voted for it, it wasn't designated for the Sanger. So you need to explain to me what else we could do with that 980. That's a lot of money, $1 million. I'd like to find out the options we can do and change and add that to something else. And a lot of things need to be done in the city. So, I mean, I'd like to put that one out.
Mr. Deming?
I'd love to say something.
With regard to just negotiating with bids that have already been received, well, these proposals, so I don't study municipal law by any means, but I know from other situations we've been in, we've been subjected to potential lawsuits by negotiating with other people after the bids have closed. Once the bids have closed, they're in, and that means nobody else can bid, and you can't alter your bid once it's been let. So how do we open up a bid, negotiate it, and give them
Don't-
the opportunity to beat a better bid that came in already?
Just don't want to get confused. This has nothing to do with Black Line's bid for construction of the Sanger.
This is the
This is the RFP to be a management agreement of some sort. And in that RFP, it's specific language that the city can reject any or all proposals, can negotiate, and all that language is, it's nothing more than we're asking for a proposal.
Isn't that boilerplate language that's typically in all of our bids?
It is, but it's often used too. No, not in the bids. Well, for contract bids it is, but this is we're requesting interest. Is there interest in doing this? The reason we kind of did this at the suggestion, I think, of Ms. Blessy, is let's look at this and let's gauge interest. And so we did this. The table was Tuesday, the RFP went out Friday, and we did show the interest. So, but that was always, it was never going to be, this one's better than that, let's just take it.
So is
There's a lot of negotiation to be done.
Is it fair to say that new players could enter the game?
If we rejected, if we were not
So
happy with.
if they didn't meet July 15th, we can negotiate with the 4 people, and they can switch and change the bids or the requests all they want, but no one else can enter the game unless nobody negotiates to the extent that we deem acceptable.
Right, I mean, if anybody responding on time, they said, well, this is what we want to do, we want you to still pay us to manage the Sanger. Okay, that would not be acceptable, and we would just reject all bids. If we had one that we looked at and they go, well, I mean, it is a process of negotiation.
Okay, well, thank you. That clears that up for me, and I guess you earned your billable hours for today.
Thank you very much. I'm overtime now.
Yeah. I have one other question. What was the amount that we said, when we all looked at the proposal for the bid, we apportioned money to certain projects and certain items. What was the amount that we originally suggested that would be set aside? Was it 1.4? Or
You're
was
talking
it
about-
was 1.5?
1.5.
1.5 was the amount that was in the, allocated to this project in the bond, in the bond that we sold.
Black Line's bid comes in at 2.325. So is it fair to say that we're going to use the $1 million, the $998,600, before we exhaust the 1.5? I mean, that's 2.5 for a bid that's 2.325 or something like that. So would we only need 1.325 out of our bond money?
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? We're
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
allocating $2.5 million for
Right.
for a 2.3 bond. I'm sorry?
We would reduce the amount that we would need out of the bond.
That's what I'm asking. I'm asking, are we gonna take
Yeah.
the money from the?
Yeah, your original proposal, the original resolution that you tabled had us using the 1.5 million and then borrowing another 600,000 from 3 other projects, which I'm sure was a problem for the council because those are other projects that you were interested in.
Right.
So now we're saying we're leaving everything else alone. We're going to use the 1.5 million.
Right, I just
and-
want to make sure that we're using the 1 million and then we
Yes.
use 1.5 million.
That-
Right. I have nothing else.
Okay, anyone else?
I just want to make a point. So if we table this, it in essence kills it because we got a 2-day window until the thing expires. So
Correct.
we're not tabling it. If we table it, we're saying no. If
No.
we say yes, let's move forward, then we have an opportunity. And if it falls below the thresholds, we may have additional funds that can be reallocated to some other project.
If this is tabled, the construction project is basically dead in the
Gotcha.
water.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Thank you.
In my former life, what I would love to, the phrase I would love to use is forward march.
Okay.
Any more discussion on the
Yeah.
amendment?
Uh,
On the amendment?
No, I want to just go one thing.
On
I
the
would just,
amendment.
no, this is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
This is a thing where, once again, you put 3 things in one resolution that should have been separated. And it's caused all this trouble because they all put in one resolution. So if you pass one, you pass them all. Well, they should have been broken down, 1, 2, and 3. And everybody could either vote for each one of them or against all of them. But once again, you keep throwing these things 2 and 3 at one time, you created a problem. And here we are again discussing this, another problem. Counts to 1.5 million, right, had nothing to do with how it was voted on before, then you dropped 981,000 in there. Then you changed the contract later. All inside of one resolution created nothing but a problem. That's why I said table it, get it all straight, and get it done.
Yep.
You know? That was, I suggested to table it, so.
All in favor of the amendment?
So, what are you actually doing on the amendment?
Striking
Striking
section
section
6.
6, and what about the 981?
Negotiating.
All we did was strike the language in section 6. That's all we did. Has nothing to do with the finance.
If you want to make a motion to strike that,
Did you
that'd be
vote
a
for it,
separate motion.
Mr.
Well,
Barrett?
that's what I was saying, to put it all together, unless you want to do them separate. You want to do the first one?
Hold up, what? We are voting on the amendment, guys. Voting on the amendment of striking 6.
Right, and I wanted to add the 981 to it. That's what I said.
981.
On the amendment, right.
You need to vote on this amendment first.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Barrett, did you vote? Okay, so 5-2. 2 against me and Mr. Barrett.
Ends.
Huh?
I voted for it. The 2 on the ends voted no.
I voted against it and Mr. Barrett voted against it. Yes, correct.
George almost said 3 against.
No, he didn't. Did
Yeah.
you vote for it? You voted for the amendment, correct?
To remove that part?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I did.
So it passes on a 5-2 vote? Madam President, thank you.
Now do I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
That's what I meant.
What I'd like to do on, before we
Yeah.
vote on after the amendment, you amended it, we voted on that. I would like to remove the $981,000 from that to see what the other options we have of spending that money. And what else can we do with it inside the city, not just drop it into one project.
Do we have a second?
So I'd like to make that motion and amend that too.
Do we have a second?
You're probably not, but I'm gonna do it anyway, so.
Okay.
Today, y'all just play the shuffle game. So, I just, you know.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the resolution as amended? Looks like 5-2 again with Lawrence and Mr. Barrett. And we'll move on to Resolution C.
Resolution to grant conditional use approval for property identified as 2037 Pops Ferry Road.
Do you have a motion? Oh.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dimming, second by Mr. Guines. Any discussion, Mr. Dimming?
I mean, it's just an opportunity to bring another business into the area. I know that it's a controversial business, but they want to make the investment, I support it.
Mr. Guines? Anyone else have any discussion?
Free tattoos.
All in favor? Unanimous vote with Mr. Barrett out of the room. We'll move on to Resolution D.
Resolution to grant preliminary final subdivision plat approval for property identified as 725 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
Motion by Mr. Felix Guines.
Second.
Second by Mr. Glavin. Any discussion, Mr. Guines?
I think it's good. Good project. It's the betterment of the downtown area. It's going to bring about great scenery. Thank you.
Mr. Glavin?
I have none.
Anyone else?
Yes, I have a question. Peter, this is on the community bank and the O-Bar issue. Can you give us some guidance on this? There's a point of contention we've heard from 2 attorneys And basically, as I recall, one side said the city promised, the other side, Ms. Obar, her attorney, Mr. Fountain, and Mr. Schwartz said, well, not really.
They're both right.
There you go.
I think there was an injunction in place. That injunction was removed. It was set aside. I don't think Ms. Obar got notice back then, but I mean, we're talking, that might have been 10, 15 years ago.
This has been going on for a number of years.
It's been going on, and we have sort of, there's still a potential of the county or the developer, whoever comes in here, is going to need parking. And there's still talk, the county needs 100 spaces. There still may be a TIF there, a TIF for a parking garage there, or there still may be a county parking garage. The developer may have parking. I know Ms. Obar, they would like to buy some parking somewhere, and
they're talking about parking on the south side of the building, the front of the building, which faces south, but there's parking on, I guess, MLK, and there's parking on Main Street. There, it's just downtown parking, I would assume, correct?
Right.
Exactly, okay.
But I mean, they've expressed they want about room for 30 parking spaces where they normally would park in front of their building.
Okay.
The bank does own that. I mean, the city really has no more interest in that. It's passed through 3 hands since that injunction was undone.
Okay.
So, but what's really before you is just to divide the plat. There was a substitute because we wanted to make sure that the sidewalk easement
Right.
goes
Appreciate that amendment,
goes around the
too.
perimeter. So that's on the new plat.
Okay. All right, that's fine, thank you.
Peter, the bank owns all the property other than the building itself, right?
Other than Miss Obar's building, correct?
Right. I mean, so they bought the property, own the property. I mean, that's an issue between them. And nothing to do with us.
Right.
I mean, that's their property, so they want to part it, that's up to them. They don't, that's up to them. Nothing to do with us.
Yes.
I mean, that's the way that thing was set up. Why it was set up that way, I don't know, but it's always been, that building has always been separate from everybody's partial land in there. So they created that problem, not us, you know?
Anyone
Now,
else?
let's roll.
Anyone else have discussion? All in favor? Unanimous vote. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tisdale,
Second.
second by Mr. Glavin. Any discussion, Mr. Glavin?
I have none.
Mr. Tisdale?
Yes, on item F. I don't know, I see Chief Tronette out there, I see Mr. Leonard back there. I'm just wondering, is there an update on Cedar Lake Bridge? I know that there were some repairs going to be done, and it leads out to Station 7. What was the cost of that project, and is there a rough timeline?
It's about a $900,000 project, and we do have an MDOT funding for that, but the funding is not available until maybe 2021. So we've been trying to go ahead and get a design engineer in place to get the plans
So nothing can be
finalized.
done on the bridge until 2021?
That's
for the
what
most part?
it's 2020, it might be
Which is-
2020, 2021,
Which is why Station 10 is so important.
yeah.
You know where I'm going, thank you. The only other item is item K, and that deals with AT&T Mobility for cellular services, equipment contract. We're, I guess, purchasing some devices or getting some software service for these devices. How many devices are we talking about? Are we just getting a couple, or? Are we getting dozens? I didn't see anything in there.
I think it's just 3 devices, and it's for 3 unique pieces of equipment that do GIS data in the engineering department and have to be on a specific piece of software.
Okay.
3 data cards. just
Doesn't
to
have
run-
anything to do with the,
Paul, that was removed, 5 out.
say again?
That was removed. Removed that at the beginning of the meeting.
Did we?
No, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, okay. Well, I asked that question. Thank you for
Hello?
answering it anyway. Is there anything else that's been removed that I could ask a question about while I'm on a roll? Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Ms. President.
Mr. Deming? Mr. Gaines?
George. Good. Good.
Mr. Lawrence?
On D, what are we doing with, D, with, extension of the road and that? D.
We're buying property. We're buying property. Which property is that? Is that the big hotel, motel? Or the apartment complex? Yeah. You're going to continue to see a series of just compensations for both Division Street and for the Pops Ferry Extension. Those are the 2 projects where we're buying up property for right-of-way. This particular one happens to be a property, a very large property that is an apartment complex that's adjacent to the Coliseum that we have to run. The road's going to go right through their parking lot. So this is the just compensation offer for the land that we're going to buy from them to extend the road through to Highway 90.
All right. And on E.
It's probably one of the most expensive pieces of property we're going to buy.
It's a grass lot.
Yeah, I saw we got a big hotel thing. I guess they're going to do that, not really sure. We're going to have about 10 hotels supposed to be built on that property. Ain't nobody built one yet. Sound like some of the stuff we do. We just pass a lot of stuff, don't do nothing. And E, we were talking about this at the budget. The CDB.
We talked about it yesterday, and in that action plan is a $10,000 amount for the Center for Nonviolence.
And what happened? What we do? Nothing?
Well,
Right.
I think their ask was 25,000, so I think we'll change their ask to 15 to the council. But
No, we didn't do nothing.
No, what I'm saying is that we've already agreed in our action plan to the HUD to give them $10,000 of CBDG money.
Right.
They asked us, the city for 25, which means that they're asking for 15 more than what they're getting from CBDG. So that's what you've got to work, that will go onto your desk now to decide, do you want to give them some more money or not?
No, that's a question I asked, since Susan's here. Could you actually turn that into more money if you amended this adoption, the CDBG money?
No, too late. Too late. Yeah, too late to change.
Okay, so they're gonna get 10,000, that's all they're getting,
From CBDG.
or from anybody.
It depends on you.
I mean, you can't keep finding these magical money that's falling in a tree, like 150,000 for the museum, 981,000 for this, and then sit there and tell them, y'all need to cut this budget.
Council President, you ready to? No. Dixie's got somewhere to go. Let's go. Let's get a move on here.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Unanimous vote, except Deming is against D as in dog. Anything else? Any other exceptions? All right, we'll move on to code
To
enforcement.
clarify things, I like dogs.
What's she like, what?
This week.
What? What did he say? Talking bad about me once.
No.
Can we have the fast version, Director?
Okay, yes. Item A on the agenda, Stephen Carl Brosh Jr., 334 Oak Street. This property is still in violation.
Gary, I know Mr. Brosh. He sent me a text
They
with a
cut the
picture.
grass.
Sent me a text with a picture and said it's been cleaned up or whatever. It's taken a day. I don't know who, what, when, where, and
Well, I'll
it's
move for a 30-day extension so we can give them
2 weeks.
a 2 weeks extension to give them an opportunity to clarify that.
Motion
I'll
2
vote
weeks
for
by
that.
Deming, second by Mr. Guines. All in favor? Unanimous votes.
Thank you.
Item B on the agenda, Theodora C. Cooley, 227 Main Street. That case has been resolved. Item C, DKS Properties LLC, 400 Howard Avenue. This property is still in violation.
Maybe y'all can find some money on the envelope and fix that place up for 'em on Howard. There's bound to be on letter DC 14A, bound to be some more money somewhere.
Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of DKS Properties LLC, 400 Howard Avenue? If not, this case is closed.
Item D on the agenda, Saymar LLC, 251 Lemieux Street. That case has been resolved. Item E on the agenda, Rhonda Wilson, 260 Bone Street. This property is still in violation.
Anyone here to speak on behalf of Rhonda Wilson at 260 Bone Street? If not, this case is closed.
Item F on the agenda, Michael Paul Zink, 628 Sunrise Court. This property is still in violation.
Do I have a motion do I have anyone here to speak on behalf of Michael Paul Zink at 628 Sunrise Court?
I would like to ask for a 30-day extension. I've
Okay.
talked to Mr. Zink, and if we can just give him 30 days.
All right, 30-day extension by Mr. Glavin, second by Mr. Guines. All in favor? Unanimous votes. We'll move on to the routine agenda. Do I have a
Moved.
motion? Motion by Mr. Glavin, second by Mr. Guines. Any discussion, Mr. Lawrence?
How much money we received? I know nothing fell out of a tree or anything yet. We got a lot of trees with money in it somewhere, until we need some. But we still up to date, we're not behind, so we're receiving enough money to be paying the bills. Because Mike can find some money somewhere, he'll make up something. So anyway, I just want to make sure we keep finding trees and everything. I'm not gonna let y'all sleep on that one.
Any more discussion? No? All in favor of the routine agenda? Unanimous votes. Motion to adjourn? Recess.
Second.
Motion to recess. Motion by Mr. Lawrence, second by Mr. Glavin. All in favor?
Get another tree.
Meeting adjourned. Recess.